Well, it's been a while since I've been in the podcast studio with Jill. It's so good to see you and Haley. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Welcome to this episode of Chew Diligence.
We're so happy to have you back.
Thank you.
Been having some good baby time.
Oh, yes, lots of baby snuggles and lots of eating on maternity leave.
I've been watching your Instagram, girl.
You got to keep it up, right? Jill and I were talking about something that happened. We're taping the day after Valentine's Day right now, last weekend, from someone who's been on our podcast.
Yes, Katie McLean, Croakstrom Club. Some news there.
Yeah, very bold statement on social media talking about they've been struggling in the winter season and among other things, and making a call for help if you love the restaurant to go see them. Jill, what did you think about that?
I knew she was going to do it, and I pushed it out for her, and I think it's bold, but people need to remember that, if you love a restaurant, you can't just say you like the restaurant. You have to go there.
How many times have you and I talked about this? There's so many places to try in Kansas City, which is amazing, which is a great thing that we have, that I myself am guilty of going to the newest place and forgetting about the places that I love that I've already been.
That is our MO, isn't it? We're supposed to be running around to the new place, which kind of drives me crazy, but it is part of our job. So, yeah, this is a good reminder to us that we do have to go back to the restaurants that we love. And I know you love Scandinavian food.
I do. With a Swedish husband and an amazing restaurant that serves Scandinavian food. Yeah, we go there. I was just going to say a lot. We have been several times, but same story, right? And when we heard that, I was so glad that it wasn't a situation where they had to close and then later I said, oh, but we loved that place.
Right. Well, you felt like you were doing something.
The city showed up, didn't they?
They did. I think they were a little bit overwhelmed even.
Booked all weekend.
Yeah.
Booked all weekend. It's a fascinating point of conversation for chefs and restaurants in our really growing food scene in Kansas City. So,
right.
If you love a local place.
If you love a local place and the weather has been really terrible, help them out.
Help them out.
I'm hearing it from a lot of restaurateurs and chefs, not just Croakstrom Club. So
that's an important point.
Yes. So get out there and support, even though the weather may not be your friend.
Not fun to drive in, but if you can do it, make it out. Today, we are talking about the American, which is so iconic for a reason. Not just because it brought the first James Beard Award to Kansas City, boasting James Beard Award-winning executive chefs. We're talking Michael Smith, Debbie Gold, Selena Tio. Not just because so many stars of Kansas City's culinary scene have been a part of the American as part of their journeys. Michael Corvino, Christopher Elbow, Josh Eanes, Alex Pope, Colby Geraltz. I mean, just the list of people who've been through is incredible. But also because of its history of bringing the culinary world to KC and still doing it. So who do we have with us, Jill?
Well, I'd like to segue right into the new chef over there, Andrew Longres. Say hello.
Hi, how are
Jump
you?
in here. And then Mary Meade, say hello.
Hello.
And tell everyone what you do at the restaurant.
I'm the director of catering. I'm the person that handles all the private events at the venue, which is now primarily a private event venue along with our concept series, but I handle all the private events.
And you have stories to tell. I know you do. So we're going to get back to those soon. And Tom Johnson, managing partner, sounds really important. I've known you for years and years. You've been in and out of that position. Tell us what that means.
I have. Good morning. I'm glad to be here with both of you, all of us, I should say. Yes, I was there from 91 to 2001. I was actually not literally in the restaurant. I was running a company called Culinary Concepts. We had 14 restaurants all down at Crown Center. A varying mix, production bakery, but the American was always our flagship, and it was just a special place that we'll get into shortly. So I did that from 91 to 01, and I left and went back to ownership. I opened a restaurant, had it for 10 years, and then for 5 I was up in Chicago doing different consulting jobs, and I came back because I was tired of living apart, and I heard from the people at Hallmark, and they asked me if I'd come back to work them through the transition, going from this beautiful restaurant that's open every night to a facility that does primarily private events, but also doing some public events that are open to the public every year. So last year we did 8. We closed December 31st, 2016, and remodeled for 3 months. It looks the same, but we've taken out the big booths, replaced the red carpet with a more neutral palette. So yeah, I've been back since then.
And did you think twice about coming back, or were you ready to jump right in? Because it's a really new and different way to run the American, but
Yes.
so happy that it's still going.
Yeah, well, I didn't really call, I called them actually because I mistakenly heard they were closing the American. And I was a little outraged because I thought, well, it's such an iconic place. There have been so many memories created there over the years. And I thought, well, maybe I could help them, or at least find out why they would be closing. Well, they weren't ever planning on closing. That was a thing I heard. So I didn't call them looking for work. I called them looking for a reason why they would be closing. And then over time, it was just multiple conversations. And it just kind of came to be. So it was kind of, one day I woke up and I was there and I was like, I wonder how'd that happen? I was just, but it was very exciting because it's such a wonderful venue.
Even the space is iconic. We were talking about that just celebrated the 45th anniversary, opened on Valentine's Day. And I didn't know this, the wood sculpture is supposed to look like a Valentine on the ceiling.
Yeah, that's a great story. And it's been told for many years.
Maybe a tall tale?
Including in 1991 when I got there. But, the architect was Warren Platner, a very famous architect that the Halls hired out of, I think he was in New York at the time. He went on to design Windows in the World in the towers before they came down and did a lot of other great projects. And I don't know as the Hall family went to him and said, I'd like you to create some Valentines on the ceiling.
If any family would do that, it would be them.
Yeah.
Right.
But it is really, it's no story. It looks like kind of this beautiful lattice. I mean, you've all seen it.
Yeah.
And it's gorgeous. And so I don't know the beginning of that story, but it's clearly a great story. And it did open on Valentine's Day as a gift to the people of Kansas City. I don't know if you've heard that story. They and it was told to me. Obviously, I wasn't here then, but they wanted a great restaurant. Joyce Hall, the founder of Hallmark, and his son Don, they wanted a great restaurant to celebrate American bounty that wasn't a French or an Italian restaurant. Not that they didn't like French or Italian restaurants, but come on, it's American. They've got we've got great produce. We were starting to get great wines back then, and they said we need a place where if you live in Kansas City, you can go to a world-class restaurant right here, second to none, and have food that's celebrated throughout America. So there was not a game on the original menu. Julie, you've probably seen some of those original menus.
I've looked at some of those original ones way back when.
Right. And then it's just through the chefs like Andrew here, the restaurants evolved cuisine-wise for all these 45 years.
Chef, is it intimidating to walk into a kitchen with such a storied history?
Oh, of course. Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of history before myself. I was previously there from 2008 to 2010 as a sous chef, and working with Debbie and going through her and then seeing the difference on Michael, and before I even worked there, the evolution of the cuisine and service style. It was very intimidating at first, but I'm enjoying it. We're having fun, and
he hit the ground running. It was
I started on December 1st, and it's our busiest time. And
Wow. And you're coming back to Kansas City. You're born and raised?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, just north of here, yeah.
In Liberty. Go ahead and say it. Liberty. We're both from Liberty.
Both from Liberty, yeah.
L-Town.
Yeah.
You were working someplace pretty incredible before this, right?
Before the American, I was the exec chef at Bluestem, right up the road in Westport for 5 years. Previously to that, I was in California, yes.
Where were you in California?
Me and my wife lived in Napa. I worked at the French Laundry.
Little-known restaurant, French Laundry. Yes.
So she says ironically.
Right, yes, absolutely. You bring incredible experience with you for sure.
Oh, I hope. I have a lot to live up to with all the chefs coming in the past. So,
did you dine there when you were a kid, or when did you first become aware of the American? Was it as a chef, or did it happen before that?
I remember in high school we had to do a career day, and it was a program through high school, and we would go and we would dine, and just one night they would take us out, and it was a part of the curriculum in, not sure what class that was, I don't remember then, and we went there, and it was like mind blowing. It was like, whoa, this exists here. We don't have to go anywhere else. Okay, this is what I want to do. This is something I want to be when I grow up. Nailed it down.
How old were you?
I've known I wanted to cook for a long time previous to that, but that was before the Food Network days where it wasn't really, what you call it. It wasn't very.
You weren't a rock star yet. If you were a chef.
The rock star days weren't there yet. So, but that being said, it really just blew my mind of like, okay, well, we can create memories, we can have fun. It's not, sometimes in some of those higher end restaurants, they become very pretentious. This wasn't. So this broke the norm of the normal high end restaurant. So that really drove me into that. And then seeing all the attention to detail. I'm a very detail oriented person. So all the attention to detail, the small details going from how it's plated, how it's presented to the guest, the phonetics of eating were thought of. If you're right or left-handed, where am I going to put this X product to make it easier for you to eat? Those were all thought of. So it was kind of, I guess, more philosophical behind it. Of like, okay, this is more than just eating. This is more than just having a good time.
It's an experience.
Yeah, and those experiences create memories, and those memories will last a lifetime.
Mary Meade has visited with so many people these last number of years that have shared experiences at the restaurant, and then wanted to translate that into their wedding rehearsal dinner or their anniversary party, or we've had a 60th birthday party here. So Mary Meade's been kind of the hub between the past and with the chef here, and translating all that, interpreting all that. It's quite a daunting task. She does rather flawlessly. So it's really, but these are people's really special moments. They're coming in to celebrate.
Yeah.
It's like there's a saying in the restaurant business in general, you don't mess up Valentine's Day. It's like you can, Saturday night, maybe you book too many reservations, or maybe you have a little problem. You just don't mess up Mother's Day. You just don't mess up Valentine's Day. That's true of every private event done anywhere, really, not just the American, but that has to be really special. And she and Andrew are the people that really are primarily making that happen. It's really an art form, I think.
One of the reasons why I came to the American, I was working at Cerner at the time as director of catering, and Zaid Nana, which everyone in Kansas City knows, had called me and said, "Mary Meade, would you be interested in coming to the American?" And yes was the answer immediately. The American has always been, to me, the absolute highest standard, highest level in Kansas City, and I just wanted to be a part of that. I came to work there when Michael Corvino was the executive chef just before the transition. I was there about 2 years prior. And of course, when they decided that they wanted to do just private events, I was like, yes! Because I was always fighting with Michael. I need that Saturday night,
Oh, sure.
But what has been really important is, and both Andrew and I have had the support of Tom and Crown Center, is to keep the American standard through this transition. We still have synchronized service. We still have beautiful linens, beautiful crystal, beautiful china. We have not dummied down at all. We still have the experience of the American for private events, and that is why I enjoy it so much. And the expectation for people who have been to the American before and are now coming in for private events are like, wow, it is still the American. And I think that that's what is so special about having an event at the American, is you get to have that experience. It's not like going to a hotel or any other venue in Kansas City does not keep that high level that the American has always enjoyed.
And in our casual dining atmosphere, are people looking for this special, more fancy, I guess, for lack of a better word, but, that kind of feeling?
Yes, what they're looking for is it doesn't necessarily have to be stuffy because we're not. I mean, we do a lot of, I don't want to say more casual, but less formal events. But the quality of the food, the quality of the service never varies. And I think that's what people are looking for is we're having our event at the American. We know it's going to be special. We know it's going to be done well. And Andrew has been an absolute delight to work with. He's one of those chefs that is client-oriented. I mean, obviously, he has his brand and his type of food, but he is all about making sure that the client is getting what they want. And if it's pickled fried chicken, it is the best pickled fried chicken out there. So
is that a real example?
Yeah,
that is a real example.
If that's what you want, absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll get it done.
That's one of those. That's one of those dishes where, and I've seen it from a lot of chefs. You know, it's the aha moment.
Yes.
I call it. They'll take a bite and their eyes will shut and they'll be quiet and there'll be and you don't know if it's like, is that just the worst thing they ever put in their mouth, or is that amazing? And they'll go,
Hopefully not.
And they'll go, oh, this is unbelievable. You know, whatever that is, whatever that dish is, and there's a lot of them. And I've seen over the years, and yeah, it's not. I wouldn't call it a signature dish because there's so many, but that would be one of the dishes that falls into that category. You don't serve it that often, but it's
but if
for
the
the person who's looking for it. It's not like a plated dinner we serve that, but for that reception.
They wanted to have a less formal event. They wanted more home style food that was exactly what they were looking for. So, all right.
I'm picturing it. Sounds delightfully salty and tangy, and
it's delicious.
It's wonderful.
Who knew? On the to-do list, pickled fried chicken.
It's easy. Take the pickle juice after you're done with the pickles. You add a little bit of water to it and soak your chicken. After that, take it out. You let it brine for a day.
See, here, it's easy, says the chef.
Yeah, they're always doing that.
They are.
I know.
It's not hard. Yeah, it's just you do this and you do this. They usually leave out a step inadvertently.
In a 10% brine solution. Does
You're
that
right.
sound familiar?
Oh, that's only on the seafood.
Yes.
It's only on
See,
the seafood.
there you go, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
You'd want a
very
7%
specific. Like I'm like, what? How many cups of salt does that mean?
Yeah, right.
Depends. Well, that's a ratio. So for every 1,000 grams, you'd put 100 grams of salt into it. That would be a 10% solution.
It is artistry and math.
It is.
Yes.
It's a lot of math.
Yes. Very sciencey guy over there.
What's very interesting about Andrew is he has a chemistry background. So
really?
he looks at food from a chemical viewpoint. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
You have to almost, right? I'm sure that adds a whole other element to how you cook.
It does, but there's a lot of things that can transfer over, but not entirely. So the math does help you out on that one.
Yeah.
If you're trying to figure out, we use some emulsifiers, and those are chemistry based because those will emulsify that you won't ever break them. So you can take a vinaigrette, add this emulsifier to it, and it'll never, ever, ever break.
And you know that going in. Yeah.
You can, and using that background really helps because it's, you know how much to use and how much not to use.
So what is the chemistry background? I know you said you had an eye for being a chef in high school.
Oh, that was just during high school. We did that. What is it? I would go to the AP courses through high school, and then I stayed around and got my chemistry degree.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then I decided that there's only two things that you can do in chemistry. You can either help people or hurt people, and sometimes helping them hurts them. So it's kind of a bad thing on that.
So let's just feed them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the beautiful part about being a cook is it's instant gratification. If you go into a chemistry and there's so much longer time that you have to do tests on, all right? You don't know the side effects till 5, 10, maybe even longer than that. But for cooking, I know exactly right now. You like it? Do you not? And also it comes into problem solving of like, if you don't like it, how can I make you like it? Or figure out what I need to tweak to like it. So it's a lot of problem solving, lots of instant gratification, and then it's just a lot easier.
we had demonstrating that chefs, I mean really good cooks, not just chefs, but really good cooks, which chefs are, they just transform food in a way that the public doesn't, and including me, doesn't get. We had, the Campo Lindo chicken.
Yeah.
There's a husband-wife owner, and we used to do, years ago, we had a thank you party prior to the holidays at the American for all our vendors, because they brought in really great stuff for us, and, if it wasn't great, we were sending it back, and, that we were kind of tough to deal with, but we were nice, and so we did this appreciation. So they told me the story that one day, when they started first butchering their chickens and selling them to the public, a couple came by and bought some chickens and took them home. And they came back about a month later, and they go, we were at the American restaurant, and they feature Campo Lindo chicken. We want to buy those chickens because the chickens that you sold us a couple weeks ago, they weren't the same quality. And, of course, if you know the chickens, they're all running around. They're all mixed up. There was no difference in the chickens. It was merely how it was prepared at the American versus how they prepared them in their home.
This sounds like a Portlandia
Right.
episode, a very specific one. Do you know the name of the chicken? No.
Yeah, I know.
This is great, very specific. And it does make a difference. It
Yeah.
makes a difference who is cooking it because they
Right.
have different skill set
They
and
just
different
bring
knowledge.
out the best in the products. They know how to handle them. They know how to cook them. It's just any great cook just puts everybody else to shame, that doesn't know the techniques. You can get there with practice.
But even
And
with the simplest ingredients, you're
Yeah.
right. They can make
And
it totally different.
Home cooks are the same way. They've got their favorite dish. They just know they've made it 1,000 times. It's not going to taste like anybody else's. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of fun.
Makes me think of, some of the top restaurants in the world. You see, it looks like a chemistry lab at times, the things that they're doing with smoke and nitrogen and all that. With a chemistry background, does that look fun to you? Does that look...
I worked in restaurants that are that way. I worked at Alinea, and that's all that they do. They kind of take the fun out of it, though, because once you have all the math down, you're essentially a robot. So there's not really much cooking that has to get done at that point. It's just plating at that point. So it's really fun, but the really fun part about cooking is every pan's different, every guest is different, every chicken's going to be different, or fish or whatever. And to find the nuances on what you need to do to get every one of them perfect and problem solve, that's the best part.
And constant.
And constant. And being very, very efficient at what you do.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of that style. I know it's the rage, and a lot of people love it. And Grant is very talented, and I've got a lot of respect for him because he lost his taste buds for a while. Everybody knows that story. But I think it loses the passion and it's more about, when I work with chefs, I talk to them a lot about cooking from the heart, not their head. And, I think that's all, everybody's up in their head when they're cooking and enjoying it that way. Oh, look, they made a watermelon taste like a turnip. It's like, well... Is that a good
I just
thing?
want a really good watermelon.
Yeah.
Why did you take a really good watermelon and make it not taste like it?
Because when
Yeah.
you eat it, you're not eating it with your head. You're
Yeah.
eating it and feeling
Yeah.
it.
And sometimes those are more an experience
Sure.
dining. So if you're looking for that experience or memory, when I dined at Alinea, it was amazing. It was a very, very good orchestrated show. The flavors were very good.
Show.
It was. But working there was completely different, and I saw the other side of it. So it was, it's, all right, follow this recipe, don't mess it up, put this much in there, that's it. So there's not a lot of nuances that were to be had on that.
And just being at the helm yourself is different, right?
Yeah. I mean, but that being said, it doesn't matter if you're at the helm or not. If you're trying to make it so regimented that it just takes the fun out of it sometimes.
Why do you think that that's very appealing to a lot of chefs, though, to kind of use nitrogen and spin this molecular gastronomy piece out of that? And,
That
nobody knows what I'm talking about if I say the word molecular gastronomy outside of this room, but this room knows what that is,
Yeah.
and so where's the disconnect there?
I think it's one of those things of I'm doing something that was deemed impossible. So I'm making a pasta that's made out of beets, and it's a gel pasta. Now, yes, you made pasta, and you made whatever your dish you were going for. It is possible to do, but at the end of the day, is it delicious? I don't know. It's so sometimes you're doing the technique without the end goal of it being delicious. Sometimes you're just doing it to do it because you can.
Because you're showing off a little bit,
Yeah.
huh? Or
You've
And I'd rather-
conquered the element.
impressing people, or
and I'd
or
rather just
conquering. That's a good one.
Yeah. And then, but nitrogen is one of those things that we can use for different textures. So you can use it for if you take a mousse and you freeze the mousse into it. It makes it really like, say I made like a soup, just like a pea soup, and I shot into the nitrogen with a whipped cream canister. What it will do is it'll turn rock solid, and so it's nitrogen is negative 329 degrees below Fahrenheit. So when you put it in your mouth, it immediately is really, really, really cold, but it doesn't burn you. And then 3 seconds or 4 seconds after, it turns into a liquid. The whole thing. So there's like an experience that you're looking for as well.
Yeah.
Plus, if you're using nitrogen, there's different sugars or alcohols that you would be trying to freeze that you wouldn't be able to freeze. Sugar doesn't normally freeze unless there's abundance of water. That's what's really going to freeze. Alcohol, again, it won't freeze because it's got ethanol into it. So.
And I'm guessing Mary Meade never hears people come in and talk about, I really want a dinner with
No.
all of these interesting chemistry lessons involved.
No, they want a beautiful plate
Yeah.
with absolutely delicious food and just served with a smile.
How has that changed over time, though? Because, I mean, I look back, I do some food styling, and when I look at what food styling was, say, in the 1960s or 70s, maybe some of the old platings that they did at the American, and then I look at what's going on now. It's such a different look and feel. I think it's still the same components that people are putting together on the plate, but how has that sort of changed over time?
I think that now you have, with the advent of the Food Network and Bon Appetit and Food and Wine, the aesthetics of the plate has certainly come into play rather than here's your meat, here's your vegetable, here's your potato, back in the 60s. Much simpler compositions, and the artistry of the plate has become very important to people, and that's the one thing that the American does real well. We just don't have like an assembly line of, just putting things on the plate. They're still very, very composed, and the ingredients of each dish is composed. We just don't, like sometimes people will come and say, well, can we have a piece of fish and a piece of meat? I'm like, well, no, the components of the fish dish are just for that, and the components for the meat dish are this, and they're really not interchangeable.
Sauces.
Yes. So the integrity of the plate is still very important to us at the American. And people are more sophisticated. They have a more sophisticated palate and understand that people also eat with their eyes and really do appreciate the beauty of a really gorgeously composed plate. And Andrew is a master at that.
Now, a place like the American has the social media vibe of taking pictures of everything you eat. Has that reached the American? Do you guys see that too and feel that pressure of making the plate look as beautiful as it can for the gram?
Well, we see a lot of people taking pictures of the plates.
Sure.
It's and videos now. They're shooting
yeah.
videos, which is wild. We get so many requests for different things. I just look forward to the latest thing I'm going to hear from Mary Meade that a client requested. It's kind of always been that way. We had I don't know if you remember what the American looks like during the holidays, or did. It started one year when I was here before, and I got a call from the manager at the American, and he said, because it was a woman that used to take over the restaurant the Friday after Thanksgiving every year for a private party, and they would spend an enormous amount of money. And the mayor's Christmas tree is lit at Crown Center on that Friday, and so she would have this very elegant, fun, expensive party.
What a view.
Yes. And we always did it for her year after year, but every year she tried to make it over the top of the previous year. So if you can remember what the ceiling of the American looks like with all that lattice, well, there's thousands of bulbs in the ceiling that were designed, and she wanted every single bulb taken down, which is now 20 feet in the air, and a string of Christmas lights hung from that outlet. And I said, Pat, we can't do that. It's going to be expensive. We're going to have to bring all these people. Anyway, so she said, I'll pay for it. So we did it. And I said, I got to take it down the next day because I didn't know what it would look like. Well, it was stunning. And we left it up for the entire holiday season. And it's been done every year since. And then I don't know why, but they stopped doing it. And then when we reopened, we brought it back again. So that's a tradition that's been, I don't know, almost 15 years, maybe longer. And it just continues. But it's all those, you got to be kidding me. You gotta, what? We recently had an event where they wanted every piece of furniture taken out. They would be bringing in everything actually, we had a couple.
We've had a couple of those, yeah.
And they built a facade on the outside of the building. They built a facade around our host stand in the bar. And they did a dinner for 65, and then 130 of their friends joined them at 9 for an event.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was a reception at that point. So, Andrew, we were bringing out food, and so it's just, it's never the same. It's just always something, somebody's going to come up with something different.
We also had a guest that wanted fireworks from the roof.
Oh,
too.
yes, fireworks.
Oh, yeah.
From where?
From the roof.
Oh, from the roof.
Outside from the roof going down.
So you could see them. Oh,
yeah.
Really cool.
It looked like rain. It wasn't like
wow.
fireworks.
Yeah.
It was like rain coming down.
3-story
sparkling.
windows.
Oh, it was
Oh, yeah.
gorgeous. Absolutely
So now
gorgeous.
that was a guest that wanted that, and we got the fireworks company to do it. Well, now guess what we offer?
We do fireworks.
We do fireworks.
And of course, we've got a video of it going off, and it's just one of those things that wouldn't really be exciting in another venue because they wouldn't have 20-foot tall windows. We haven't had any takers yet. Oh, actually,
We did. We had a New Year's Eve wedding, and they wanted it, but the fireworks people were, booked everywhere else. But she said, money's no object. I want it. And unfortunately, we weren't able to accommodate. But yeah, it's pretty spectacular.
the brochure gets longer. Let me show you the fireworks package.
the video.
Right?
Yeah.
Then they did it flawlessly. Like all the lights
yeah.
got dimmed at once, nobody noticed, and then the big crescendo at the music, and it was on.
That's fun.
It was really
That was
cool.
all over social media.
All
that was everywhere.
That was really cool.
Along with a lot of other photos of both of those events.
So are there ever things that you have to say no? Just, because it seems like Andrew and I were talking about this earlier. His job, he says, is to say yes.
Yeah.
And, does somebody want to bring in a giraffe or, do is
we've
there
done
a point where,
No, we haven't.
is there a point where
Well,
you
it's
just
tall
say,
enough.
We'll keep 'em in the walk-in.
no, it's either not in keeping with our brand or it's just logistically
Yeah, the things
impossible.
we don't like to say no, but we will say no when as you hit it right on the head, it negatively affects our brand. So there are large groups out there that want to be in and out in a hurry because for logistic reasons. They have a convention, they need to be out done in an hour, and so they'll come in and go, we want you to preset the salad on the table and then get the entree down and then serve it. And we're not going to do that. Because not so much because we're snooty and wouldn't want to do that, but because everybody at that luncheon would then think this is what the American does, and what's so special about that? I can get that anywhere else. So we don't do things that'll put the food in a bad light or compromise service standards. But other than that,
Well, yeah, we try and accommodate, like when people, like what Tom was saying, when we have some business luncheons that are like that, I'm just saying, we're very good at getting out the food very quickly. And, I try and work with them to get their needs accomplished, but also not hurt our brand. Or when someone comes in and says, well, you can just put the wine on the table. No, we serve our wine. We don't put wine on the table and have the guests serve it. Or can you just drop coffee pots? Well, no, we serve coffee. And then I talk about how, our staff are quiet. They understand that there's a speaker going on, so they're not clanging things. You just have to trust us that we're going to give the best service possible, but also meet your needs. So we try and I guess, compromise a little bit.
We're telling what we can do, not what we're not.
Yes,
But
exactly.
once in a while, we have to say, no, we're not going to do that.
No.
We're not the
No
space
to
you're
the
looking
giraffe.
for. Yeah, no to the giraffe.
No
Well,
to, no to
every-
self.
That didn't say no to that one.
Yeah.
Let's point that
So
out.
if you're out there,
Every restaurateur has gone through this. This is not exclusive to the American. We all of us in the industry, we all want to take care of the guests and serve them well. And everyone who has been in that position, they're always weighing can I really do that? But here's the bottom line: if you do something and the guest during whatever it is you're doing, and it really turns out badly, and you knew it was not a good idea, and you did it anyway because the guest wanted it, they're not going to say, "Oh yeah, I shouldn't have suggested that." They're going to go, "Well, that was horrible. Why did you do that?" They're not going to. And so all of us in the industry, we are, and people need to realize we want your event. All of us, everywhere in the industry, want your event to go well. We're trying to do things that are going to be really spectacular for you. But we're going to tell you when it's really not a good idea.
speaking of spectacular events, Friends of James Beard dinners, talk about how many have been at the American and what a big deal that is when you have them.
Yeah, we started that when I was here before. It was one dinner we started, and we raised money for the James Beard Foundation. And, I left in '01. It continued on, and it was held every year. When we remodeled, we switched the event from the fall to February. So there was a delay of a few months. So technically, we didn't get one done in 2017. But it's an annual event. We just did our 20th. Yeah, so hard to believe.
Longest running in the United States.
Pretty impressive guest list.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, very.
Well, let's talk about some of the chefs that have come through because,
James Beard and otherwise.
yeah, exactly. I mean, Tom, you can probably answer this or at least start us out on this. For people who don't know what the brand is, the American brand and the chefs who have been through that restaurant, it's pretty incredible what the American did. It basically put us on the culinary map.
Yeah, the Halls were so visionary with their decision to build this. I don't know if they knew. I never met Joyce Hall. I certainly met Don a number of times and had different conversations with him over the years, Don Sr., and now his son, Don, has been wonderful. Back, I think it was summed up recently for me by the chef at Spiaggia in Chicago, who was in town doing an event with us. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his
Tony.
name. Tony, yeah. Tony's probably in his late 50s, I think.
Yeah.
And he opened Spiaggia, which is a very famous Italian restaurant in Chicago, and then did other things, and he's currently back with them. And he and another senior group of chefs about the same age take this show on the road where they come in, and we did a dinner with them. But anyway, Tony came in, and he walked in, and I think it was his first time in the American, and he just paused, and he turned to his 3 other fellow chefs and some other young people that were there, and he said, "You guys know what this place means to everyone in our industry?" He said, "Some of the great names have been through here and have started here." And it was almost like he was in church. He just, it was that special. And to see someone else acknowledge that was amazing. But before the Food Network and all the media, if you were a great chef and you wanted to get your name out there, you had to go on the road. And so we had much easier time back in the 90s bringing chefs in. So, for example, Nobu was in, Tom Colicchio, who's now a network,
Jose Andres.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember that so vividly. And he was famous. He had worked with Ferran Adria, but not to the level he is now. I'm like, I knew him when.
Yeah.
And I got to meet a lot of chefs that way.
Yeah, Todd English.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think of some. Rick Bayless.
Rick Bayless was in a number of times, yeah. I've got pictures of him when he looks, and I do too, a lot younger.
Well,
Yeah.
Charlie Trotter came.
Yes.
I mean, there are just some names that are legendary in the culinary world. And I would never have had the opportunity because I didn't ever have a job that I could travel to meet these people. So it was always very special for me to be able to come to the American, hang out for the entire day, interview the chefs, be behind the scenes, and then have the dinner that night and see what, how it all came together.
An interesting story about Charlie was that Charlie Trotter, he came to the restaurant. Of course, he was, he had a big reputation and kind of a big ego, and he did a lot of good in the world. But he also had this side of him that was really, chefs loved to tell stories about him that worked for him. And Michael Smith and Debbie Gold both worked for him at different times. So he came in, he brought a team with him. They were meticulous. I don't remember if it was the James Beard dinner or something else, but we were auctioning off. Do you remember this?
It was yeah, I do, because it was an anniversary dinner. It wasn't actually a beard dinner.
Yeah.
It was something.
And they were auctioning off a dinner at Charlie Trotter's in Chicago. And I don't remember what the bid, and so it was a live auction. It wasn't a silent auction. So there were two principals left, and I don't remember the number, but it was a big number. Let's say $10,000, and they were bidding against each other. And Charlie stopped the bidding, and he said, "We're at whatever it was, $10,000." He goes, and he was pointing to the guy that did not have the bid. He said, "If you pay $10,000, I will agree to host both of you at different times." So just with that, he raised an extra $10,000 for whatever the charity was. So he was also a very generous person, generous heart. And I think it was kind of you see the best of chefs when they're in that kind of environment, usually.
And then I also remember he was coming in the afternoon, I think, and kept waiting and waiting. We were all at the restaurant waiting for him to.
Sounds like him.
I think they took off and went and had fried chicken somewhere. I'm not sure, but it's like there was a lot of, where is he? Where is he? And he was a personality, so so he could turn around and say, yeah, another 10,000. What the heck? I can do that.
Right.
A lot of fun. Very, very fun dinners. Now. Michael and Debbie were the first to win a James Beard Award, and then later Selena. And so that sort of got our pipeline going for James Beard Awards. And for somebody who might be listening, what's so special about a James Beard Award?
Well, it was hard to get.
Yes.
There are certainly a lot of categories these days. It's much like the Oscars, if you've never been to one. You know the nominees, and you talk about the nominees, and they come out much earlier in the year. And you have to be nominated. It's not easy just to get nominated. So a nomination for a James Beard Award is a big deal also. And I think Michael Corvino, wasn't he nominated?
Yes, this year he was nominated.
Yeah, this year. So, congratulations to him. And I'm sure I'm skipping someone else. But first of all, getting a nomination is big. And you have to be on the map. People have to know about you. So it's not enough just to be a great cook or a great chef. You actually have to people have to know about you. So that's hard, and it's a very noisy world out there in media. And so back then, we did it kind of an old-fashioned way. And we invited a lot of people to the American. They saw what we were doing at the time, and of course that's how the nominations occurred. Michael and Debbie were nominated a number of times prior to getting the award.
They won in 1999, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah, I left I hired Selena, and then I left, which she's never really. She always brings up. So I wasn't there during the process of her nomination, but I knew she was a great chef. And there have been a lot of great chefs and cooks through there that aren't either eligible for the nomination because they're not there long enough, or like currently, I don't know, as Andrew could be considered nominated because we're not open enough, not nightly.
Yeah.
But he's certainly of the same caliber of, kind of an interesting fact. I've never not hired a James Beard Award winning chef for the American.
Wow.
So
Look out, Andrew. That's
So I
a
think,
pretty awesome track record
yeah,
there.
or I should say that could have been eligible, because I did hire Jim Ackert. I don't know if you remember him.
I do.
He took over for Rex Hale and preceded Michael and Debbie, and he came out of Wolfgang Puck's organization, was a great chef, turned really a big corner at the American in '92, but wanted to, he was young and he kind of wanted the big city, so he went and opened Spago in Mexico City, yeah. So he wasn't there long enough, so he couldn't have been nominated.
Yeah, the parameters are you have to be in the region for 3 years, and then you have to be. The nominations are always dependent on. It goes to the public first for nominations, and then that would be called the semifinals, and then the finals are by the past winners vote on that.
Oh.
So and then it dwindles down. And
Yeah, I
then
never really
the past
knew about
winners,
that.
once they give theirs, it goes down to 4 or 5, and then the James Beard House chooses.
I was going to ask, do you think with Debbie and Michael winning the first, bringing it to Kansas City, and the long road that was, we've heard from other industries, or, we fight the flyover country image, and I really do think that is changing. Was part of the difficulty in bringing a James Beard Award here being in the middle of the country, Kansas City, and not New York or LA or Chicago?
Absolutely.
Play a
Yeah.
factor?
Well, the biggest problem was getting the chef here, because I don't know if you can remember back then, there were a lot of chain restaurants here. There were some independent restaurants that were, I would consider, really good, but that really phenomenal, that world-class chef, there weren't that many of them. And, if you're trying to launch your career and you're in New York or San Francisco or Chicago and you're traveling to Europe and, hey, come to Kansas City, take over. So by building the American restaurant, that was, the chef walks in and go, wow, okay, getting my attention. I can set up shop here. I can make something happen here. So without that, I think it would be very hard to attract people. Now, not so much, because, I think values have changed, lifestyle has changed. Andrew was at the French Laundry, one of the, if not the highest profile restaurant, chose to come back here, a better place to raise a family. And so a lot of people are looking for lifestyle choices, and they choose the Midwest in general, I think. So that's the selling point. It's a better cost of living, lower crime, great people, great schools. All those things factor in. Now, if you're a hotshot single chef and you're wanting to go to Mexico City or New York, yeah, we're probably not going to get you.
The chefs that came in, they were blown away by the hospitality of Kansas City and the whole lifestyles that we have. We had a gentleman from San Francisco, and we were getting out of the car, and he was like, "So where do you pay to park?" And we were like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "What do you? I don't understand. You have to pay to park." He's like, "No."
Is that a Yannick?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's originally from
He's from
France.
Paris, yeah.
Paris.
From Paris.
And he's like, and he lives in San Francisco. He's like, "I pay $62 a day to park my car."
Oh, my
I'm
gosh.
like, "No, we don't pay anything. Sorry." He was like, "You guys are the nicest people here." I was like, "Thank you."
It is. It's a lovely place to live.
Yeah.
When you were coming back, what did you think of the Kansas City food scene versus leaving wine country or wherever else you would work?
It's just vastly different. There's not in wine country. There's so many different restaurants there, and Napa is only about 80,000 people that live there, but there'll be almost 1 million people during tourist season. So there's a lot of restaurants there, but here there's not as many restaurants. But the ones we have out there, there's a lot more independence. Before I left, there was a lot more chain restaurants, but that surgence of the independent restaurant really came really, really, really fast, which is awesome because people don't always want that. They want more of a smaller town feel. That's what we are. We want that small town feel. We don't want to be New York. We don't want to be San Francisco. And I think the way that we approach people from those, they just get blown away by it.
And don't you feel that maybe people who would have gone somewhere else once upon a time, now the food scene in the last 20 years, and I will credit the American, I think, for really kicking that off, now they want to stay. It's not so much of I need to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Not so much of a gamble.
Yeah. I mean,
Food scene's so different
It's
now
so
than 20 years ago. It's really good. I mean, I think it's hard to compare it to Napa. You will always, because of the attraction there and the wine, but compared to 20 years ago, it's nothing like that. And there are so many great chefs. I mean, you've got Michael Smith, Selena, and Michael Corvino all set up their own shops, all came out of the American. All were not living here at the time, all got recruited to the city. So that's...
Colby as well.
Yeah, Colby. I didn't know that. I thought Colby grew up here, I thought.
He grew up here, but he came
wasn't
back. He was living in Santa Monica.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was a cook at the
me.
American for a while when I was there. And, there's a great... And this exists in other cities as well, but there's a great camaraderie with chefs in town. Colby was at the James Beard dinner with his wife, Megan. It was great to see him. He hosted all the guest chefs at his restaurant the night before the James Beard dinner. They were busy working all day in the American, and then he said, well, come on over for food and drink. He did it last year as well. So I think, that's just great, a great place to live and be part of a culinary scene.
Is that different than other cities? I've had a lot of people ask me. They'll say, everybody's so nice here. And the chefs seem, for the most part, to get along and hang out together. And are we different, or is that happening in other cities as well?
There's definitely a camaraderie between chefs at all times. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're going to the small cities or the big cities, because everybody knows everybody. It's a very small world out there, and especially in our community. And so that being said, everybody's in the same boat for the same reasons. We all want to have fun. We all want to do good food. We all have the same, essentially, values. So we usually get along pretty well. There are some rivalries, of course, but those are just probably ego-driven. And
Tell them the story of, you just told me this week about how you were working at the laundry, and the Sue asked, who's got a car?
Oh,
yeah.
That was it was very fortunate on my end, because when I moved out there, normally when you move out there, the other cooks just sold their car and they lived in the small town of Yountville. That's where the laundry is. So Thomas Keller has a bunch of properties. Anything that comes up, he just buys and he rents out to his employees, which is great. But I lived in the city of Napa, about 10 miles away. So I was the only person with a car. So Timothy Hollingsworth came to me. And
who's Timmy?
Timothy Hollingsworth was the chef de cuisine, and so he was running it.
The French Laundry,
yeah. So he came into the kitchen, was like, who has a car? And I was the only one and I was like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but I do. And he was like, perfect, drop what you're doing. You're going to go work with my friend at an event. He needs help right now. And I was like, okay. And so he was like, you're leaving like now. So, okay, here's the address, go. Well, I go there. And I find out it's Michael Tusk. Michael Tusk is a 3 star chef. We struck a good rapport. Anytime he would come up to California or up to Napa, because he's based out of San Francisco, he'd call me to do private events. So I was very fortunate to just have a car, just be the only person with a car.
And you got to work with a Michelin.
And I got to work with a 3 Michelin star chef, and we struck a good rapport. So I went and helped him. I staged down there a couple times. His old sous chefs came to be at the laundry as well too. So we got, I got the insight of how they work and all the different techniques that they use down there. So it was a great learning for me. It was fun. Wow. Yeah, I was just merely lucky for having a car.
Having a car.
So explain again for people who might not know, like, how does Michelin stars equate to like a James Beard Award, or are they different, and how?
So Michelin, it was based in 1903. It was the Michelin brothers, people that make cars or tires. So that being said, they wanted to come out with a book, and they wanted to give the books to whoever bought their tires. And so that book came out, and it would be rated on a 1, 2, or 3. That would mean if you're going from Lyon to Paris, you would say a 1 Michelin star is a good place to eat. The second is it's worth a detour. A 3rd Michelin star is that needs to be the final result. Why you're going to Paris.
Destination.
So, the destination of it. Yeah. Okay. So they're all based upon that. Experience is the biggest, why are you going there? So in Europe, they are based on, they have little stars as well to them, but 1, 2, or 3 is the biggest one. 1 is merely for food, they say. Again, it's very secretive, so you don't really know what the parameters are. It's very shrouded in secrecy of how do you get that second one? And people really, really strive for 3 Michelin stars, or 2, or 1, and they're difficult to get. So Michelin has to deem you worthy. They eat there unannounced. You don't know when they're going to be there. And then every year they come back out. And at least 2 times, so you never know. So you have to maintain that. You can always go up. You can go down as well. That's not a good thing. There's been some places that have gone down. And then the only ones in United States right now are San Francisco, which does the whole Bay Area now. There is DC, New York, and Chicago. So we only have 4 currently right now. We used to have Vegas, and we used to have LA. Hopefully they'll come back to LA. The parameters, and it's worldwide too. So they're in Asia, they're in the Middle East.
They haven't been in the U.S. Jill, you would know how long, I think. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Jill
knows.
Not very long.
Less than 10 years, I would say.
Yeah. And they would pick out a city and kind of survey the whole city.
Correct.
To give them a start. They're not just going after, I think.
But in Chicago now, so like San Francisco, it's the whole Bay Area. They'll go all the way up to Healdsburg right now.
Okay.
But in Chicago, they're really like just Chicago proper. So they're not really expanding too much out of that. I don't know why. But there's a lot of people that are trying to go to the suburbs, but they just can't get that.
Is that a bigger award to you? I mean, would you strive for a Michelin over a James Beard? Are they equal? Are they different?
I think they're just very different. So,
well, the Michelin is, if I'm not mistaken, the Michelin's awarded to the restaurant. The James Beard Award
to the chef,
is
to the individual.
Usually to the chef. I think they have.
You wouldn't be the chef if you didn't have a restaurant too.
Right.
That I guess they kind of go hand in hand on that one.
It's life-changing to get even 1 Michelin star, right?
Yeah, and then let alone 2 or 3. There's people, Atelier Kren or Dominique Kren out of San Francisco. She got her 3rd Michelin star this year, and she's been working for that for 10 years. She's had 1, then went to 2, worked many years getting 2, striving for 3, and then recently just got it. So congrats on that one. It's a big achievement to get a 3 Michelin star.
It's kind of like the New York Times and the stars.
Yeah, if you get the 4, that's a big thing.
So one thing that we've never talked about is the American, the name, and the importance of American cuisine. Andrew, you want to take a stab at that? What is American cuisine anyway? Because I mean, the American kind of helped define it.
Yeah, absolutely. So. What I would say American cuisine is we are a melting pot, just like America. There's all different ethnicities. There's all different religions. There's different ways of life. It doesn't matter. And that's way we kind of take on that. There has been more Indian-influenced dishes. There's more Asian-influenced dishes. There's all different, runs the gamut up to it. So I think it's the melting pot of what we've done. It's evolved over time as well too. It hasn't just been on one menu by any such fashion. But for instance, Debbie was very like classic French. I remember working as a sous chef, and it was very, very classic French. It was delicious. It was awesome. And then there's other chefs that are a little bit different styles. So it's just an evolution, I'd say.
Yeah, I've always thought it reflected the makeup of the country. Not so much just what we grow here, although that's certain. All chefs like to be as local as they can, but it's just not going to happen all the time. But I think Andrew just put that so well. It's really a makeup of all the people here, which means it's really not defined.
Yeah, and the funny thing is even with the chefs that came in last week, they were blown away of what we can grow here. They were like, "Oh, you just have cows and potatoes." And they're like, "No, we have everything that is in San Francisco. We can grow here. Might be a shorter period of time. It might only be available 2 weeks, but we can still grow it here. We can grow things that are all the apple trees and fruit trees. We can get everything. It's the perfect climate for it. And breaking that stigma of just being that flyover country or the meat and potatoes. We have the best produce that I've ever seen here. I love it here.
Lots to choose from as a chef. Your palate is big.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's so much you can, from the local farmers, too, that really take care of the products instead of just running them through the gamuts of how fast can I grow it, how fast can I get it out and make money. It's not that way here. It's a lot more, let's do it right. Let's take our time. And if it takes an extra week, well, it takes an extra week. It's okay.
Well, before we leave all of you, if someone at home listening to the podcast is thinking, I want to go check out the American, what's coming up that somebody could go check out?
Our next event is, the next two events are Easter and Mother's Day. So we'll be open to the public both of those days. We're not taking reservations quite yet, but soon. Andrew just created the menu, and we're just kind of reviewing that right now. So those are the next two events, and they're on our website at theamericankc.com, and check it out.
That's a way to treat Mom. If there is snow on Mother's Day, I'm going to be very upset.
You've already got your reservation in.
You know, if she's listening, yeah, Mom, let's go there. That sounds good.
Yeah, your first Mother's Day.
Oh, my!
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wasn't even thinking about that.
yeah.
Thank you all.
Yes.
That's right.
Yep.
So great to have you guys.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was
Thank
a
you for
pleasure
having me.
being
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Really fun.
See you next time on Chew Diligence.